Hello, my name is Keshwani. There's Keshwani, Keshwani. We are here because we want to prepare for the GMAT. We have been solving GMAT math problems out of this book here, GMAT Review, the official guide, the 13th edition. If you do not own this book already, purchase one immediately. You're going to need it. The problem that we're about to solve is the one that you will find on page number 285, problem number 118, and today's our lesson number 154. In problem 118, we are told that we have this function here, which is defined as the minimum of these two numbers that appear here, x and y. The minimum of x and y is defined as the lower of the two, and the maximum of x and y is defined as the maximum or the higher of the two. The question simply is, let's see what are they asking here. The question simply is, for integer w, what is the value of minimum 10w? That's it. Now what we need to understand here is that, because they are asking for the minimum of 10w, all we have to establish here, all we have to do is figure out if x is more than 10 or if x is less than 10. If x happens to be, so here's the solution. If x happens to be less than 10, or rather I meant to say w. If w happens to be less than 10, then the minimum of 10 and something less than 10, if w is less than 10, minimum of 10 and something less than 10 is just going to be the w. On the other hand, in which case we need to know the precise value of w in order to answer this question. What is the value of 10 and something less than 10? The answer would be whatever it is that the w is, the precise value of w. On the other hand, if w happens to be something more than 10, if w happens to be something more than that, then minimum 10w, because w is something more than 10, let's put down here as 10 plus. In this case, the minimum, the lower of the two, is 10. So in this scenario, if w turns out to be something more than 10, in that scenario, we don't actually need to know the precise value of w, because minimum of 10 and something more than 10 is 10. And we will have answered the question. The question is, what's the value of the minimum 10 and something less than 10? What's the value of 10? What's the minimum value of 10 and something less than 10? The answer is 10. In which case, we don't need to know the w. So all we have to establish here is whether w is more than 10 or less than 10. Let's see what they tell us, shall we? Let's see what they tell us. In the first statement, they tell us that the maximum w happens to equal the maximum of 20 and z. But there are only two possible scenarios here. Either z is something less than 20, in which case the maximum of 20 and something less than 20 with a minus sign, the maximum is going to be 20. Or z is something more than 20. If z is something more than 20, in which case the maximum of 20 and something more than 20 is going to be, of course, whatever that quantity is, something more than 20. Whatever this quantity is going to be the maximum of the two values. But we are told that this quantity equals w. This quantity equals w. And so does that quantity. We are told that the maximum happens to equal, this happens to equal w. In other words, what we have found here, one more time, we are told that the maximum of 20 and z is w. Well, z is either less than 20 right here, in which case it is 20, the answer is 20, or z is something more than 20, in which case the answer is something more than 20. But we are told that in either case, in either of this scenario, it is equal to w. What it tells us is that what we found here is that what we have found here is that w, whatever it is 20 or more. Voila. In other words, w equals to 20 or something more than 20. That's what this part tells us. That's what the first statement tells us. The first statement tells us that w is either 20, in which case if z happens to be 20, then w equals exactly 20, or if z happens to be more than 20, then w is something more than 20. But the minimum that the value that w can have is 20. That's what the first statement tells us. Now let's see if we can answer the question. Question was this. This is the question here. The question is, what is the minimum of tan and w? We have just found out that w is equal to or greater than 20. If w is equal to or more than 20, then the minimum of tan and something equal to or more than 20 is 10. We have answered the question. The answer is 10. The minimum value of 10 and something more than 20 is 10. So the first statement does the job. First statement is sufficient. Let's look at second statement, shall we? That's it, we are done with this part. Now because of the fact that the first statement was enough, A, D, B, C, E. Because of the fact that we just found that the first statement is enough, that tells us that the answer cannot be B, C, or E. It would have to be either A or D. Let's look at second statement. In the second statement, they tell us that W equals maximum of 10 and W. W equals maximum of 10 and W. Now because we are told here that maximum of 10W does not equal 10, we are told it equals W, it doesn't equal 10. Because we are told that maximum of 10W does not equal 10, that implies again that W, whatever it is, that implies that W, whatever it is, has to be something more than 10. That's it. W, whatever it is, has to be something more than 10. Why? Because here's the situation. Why? Because had it been this case, had W been equal to 10, the answer would have been the maximum of 10 and 10 is 10. It wouldn't have been W. On the other hand, if W had been less than 10, answer again would have been 10, because the maximum of 10 and something less than 10 is 10. But because we are told that maximum of 10 and W is W, that tells us that this W, whatever it is, has to be something more than 10. It has to be greater than this guy, because the maximum of these two, 10 and W, is W. So that statement tells us, the second statement tells us this W, whatever it is something more than 10. Again, since W is something more than 10, here we'll put down W is equal to or greater than 10. One more time, we are able to answer the question, what's the minimum value of 10 and something more than 10? The answer is 10. And therefore the second statement by itself also does the job. The answer is D. The only difference is that the first statement was stronger. It was stronger in the sense that all we were trying to establish is whether or not W is something more than 10. The first statement was stronger in the sense that not only it tells you that W is more than 10, but it went further than that. Not only we knew that it was more than 10, but the first statement told us that it is at least 20. We didn't need that as strong of a statement, but that's what the first statement told us. First statement told us that W is at least 20. All we wanted to know if it's more than 10. And the second statement also tells us that part. Second statement also tells us that W, whatever it is more than 10. It couldn't be 10, it couldn't be 10, and it could not be less than 10, because had it been 10, One more time, had it been 10, maximum of 10 and 10 would have been 10. Maximum of something 10, some 10 and something less than 10 would have been again 10. But we are told that the maximum of 10 and W is W itself, which means this is the quantity that is more than 10. That quantity is more than this guy. That's all. I hope you found it helpful, and I hope to see you again tomorrow. Okay? Bye now.